let's get to some LSU stuff. I know that's why you're here, so let's get to it. Brian Kelly met with the media today and probably dropped a little bit of a bomb on LSU fans. And I got to admit, I was not expecting him to say some of the things he said today, but not in a bad way, but and where he sees things will be processing. Now, what we talked about last night doesn't change. I still think 5 to 7 guys will still transfer. I thought that they might go after another corner, might go after another running back. It looks like that they're not going to do that. Brian Kelly today in his press conference after practice said that they are only targeting, or he expects, key word there, he said, I expect that the only position group that we will be going after in the transfer portal this spring portal period is defensive tackle. Let's break that down very quickly. So you've had a video. So you got Gio Paez from Wisconsin, okay, to commit. You had a guy on campus from Indiana here this week, which I heard went relatively good. And there are going to be other defensive tackles that hit the portal that I'm sure that LSU will attack and go after. And again, like I do in every one of these breakdowns, I give you what I believe about the team. I think Brian Kelly's doing a great job. I think that he's brought in an immense amount of talent. I would tell you if I felt otherwise. Here are just some things about that I think could be happening on why he said he's only going after one position and why I don't know if it's actually 1,000% true. Because later in the press conference, he would say, you know, like we're trying to build defensive depth. Like we have found places that we're weak at, and we got to go attack those places to get better. So the first sentence that Brian Kelly said in the press conference was about the defensive depth. Now that we know where we stand, we know where we have to go and attack. Then he came back and said defensive tackle, which obviously that's something that me and you talked about. But I don't think that it is the only thing and only position that he means. I know what he said about DT. I get it. I think he might be bluffing. Maybe I'm wrong. And I will retract if I'm wrong. I'm not 1,000% sure that they don't go after a back. And I think that they are banking on the hope that Trey Holly is back in August and is able to go through the season. Now, let me talk about that very quickly. I do think that they need another back. Like, I 100% believe that they need to go get somebody for only depth purposes. Guys, I will remind you, and you have been on my ass all offseason or spring, Blake, stop talking about running back. I understand it. But, guys, it's a big position. And it's the biggest question mark offensively that you have. Let me explain why. Guys, you got to fund another running source outside of Jaden Daniels. And if you use Caleb Jackson as a bull, Caden Durham, Josh Williams, guys, having 3 scholarship running backs, God willing and God forbid, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, gets injured, it's not good. You can't go into a game, or God forbid, multiple games, where you only have 2 scholarship guys. By the way, I love Josh Williams. Josh Williams was a walk-on that got himself there. He's a team leader. He's a guy that is very serviceable. I will say this, because of everything he's meant to this program, I will put him up there with some of the greats, not from a play style, statistic style, none of that. But what he's done for us here can't be measured. I just don't know if the right situation presented itself that they don't go after it. Now, about the Trey Holly thing. Guys, I know Brian Kelly said and this is how things change very quickly in the court system. Last week, Brian Kelly said that he thought that the case could be done on April the 17th. The issue with that is now Trey Holly's attorney has to push back Trey Holly's court date because he has a murder trial starting that same week. So he's going to have to push back Trey's court case. How long is that murder trial going to go on for? A week? 2 weeks? I don't know. But God, let's say on the small side, it's a week to 2 weeks. So you go into May. Well, they have to go back to court to get a trial date. So they don't even have a trial date yet. And maybe some of these charges get dropped. I don't know. He still has 2 felony charges on him. So if you're getting into May if you go to court to May to get a court date, what if the court date is in June? What if the court date is in July? God forbid that they got to push that back for any reason. By the way, I will tell you, any attorney on planet Earth will tell you, if you know one in your family, call them. If you know one of your friends is an attorney, call them. They will tell you in criminal cases, a lot of times these things the can gets kicked down the road so much. Let me give you an example from my own personal experience. In my past life, there was a trial that was going on that I was a part of. And in that trial, my wife that's a whole different story, but I got subpoenaed for the same trial, I think 7 times. We would come home and my wife would say, guess who came by today? Here, you got served in this case that you're working. Okay. It got kicked down the can 7 times. The truth is, it's very similar to the case that Trey Holly's going through. Guys, it took 7 months from the first time I was subpoenaed to the last time I was subpoenaed. I do think it's very risky. Knowing what I know about the court system, I think it's risky not going after somebody else. Now, here's the flip side of that. I am not Brian Kelly. I am not in that building every day. I don't know all the details that a Brian Kelly would know. So he can have a vast majority of things that he knows that I do not. Obviously, he does. But I do think that there's a risk there. And listen, man, you can't go in with 3 scholarship backs. Last year, you know who did that? Georgia. Guys, they were using a tight end, H-back / wide receiver as a running back at times last year, get 1-2 carries. When you do something like that and a back goes down, it puts a lot of strain on your running backs. Here's why I also don't know if 100% I think Brian Kelly could have been bluffing. Let me tell you why. Because last Saturday, he was asked about the Caleb Jackson in the running back room. The first sentence that he said was this: boy, that room's really thin, isn't it? That is a quote unquote. So he says that. It leads me to believe if the right situation arose that they would do it. I can be wrong. I'm not perfect. I've been wrong before. I've been wrong on the show. We'll continue to be wrong on the show at times. I think 95% we're right, but 95%, there is times where I am. Maybe I'm wrong in being worried about that position. Now, let me rewind. Let me put that all in a little bit of a bow for you because I know what's going to happen. Oh, my God. Blake said they were not good at running back. It literally happened with our Garrett Nussmeier thing last night. Again. And I went back and listened to it to make sure I didn't say anything that was factually inaccurate, and I did not. What you just heard, or what you heard, should not be the following. It should not be that room's not going to be stacked. The room has stupid talent, ungodly talent. I think Caleb Jackson's a beast. I think Caden Durham, day one, June the 1st, when Caden Durham walks through that door, the locker room changes. He is an alpha. I will tell you, when I saw that young man in Dallas with his teammates, and when his teammates show up late, he let them know about it. Like, hey, man, when you commit, I hope everybody shows up late for your ass. The kid is an alpha. I'll be real with you. I'm very, very, very high on Caden Durham. You need another back for depth. Malachi Lane, the walk-on, maybe he can be serviceable in a pinch, and maybe that's why you're leaning on that. But, and God willing, Trey Holly comes back, because there's a reason why. Let me wrap the Trey Holly thing up in a bow too. God, I knew we were going to have to come back to this. The second-degree murder charge was dropped on Trey Holly. He was acquitted, or the grand jury decided not to indict, I should say. He's not going to get indicted on that. But they're still going to trial on the other two. Trials can be messy, y'all. They can be messy. They can be prolonged. Again, I do not know all the details. I have not actually dug into it enough, point by point by point by point. I'm not getting every single detail on Trey Holly's life here. But what I will tell you is, I just don't have faith in the court system getting this done and resolved easily. Now, there is a chance where both charges that remain with him, aggravated criminal damage to property and aggravated illegal use of a firearm, I think those two could be dropped to misdemeanors. The question becomes, if he pleads guilty to those two misdemeanors, is LSU going to allow him to be back? I think that could be a case. Let me explain. Brian Kelly said that we're going to fight with the university, or fight for Trey Holly when it goes to appeal with Trey Holly, which means I think that there's a chance that both of them are going to get dropped down to misdemeanors. I think he's going to plead no contest, and they're going to wash it, and it might not go to trial. If he does that and LSU allows him to come back, that can happen within a month. The question becomes, does he want to plead no contest? I know that's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo, all that bullshit, but it's definitely worth hearing that. It's just my opinion, man. And look, Frank can disagree with me, clearly. So can BK, clearly. I still think they're doing an amazing job. Look at the talent that they've brought in that position. Ungodly. JT Lindsey got an offer the other day. You got the number one running back in the country committed to you. So all I'm saying here, all I would say is, I don't worry about the position when it comes to pure talent. It just comes down to numbers for me. By the way, I'll remind you. Remember when Noah Cain came in last year for that Florida game and caught a touchdown pass? Hadn't played all year. Guys, what if you're in a game against Florida and you need a fourth back, and that's Malachi Lane? Not poo-pooing on Malachi Lane, but what if that is Malachi Lane? And by the way, guys, getting the magic number next year is 10. In the regular season, the magic number is 10. If you get to 10, you are in. Let me repeat that. Win 10, you're in the SEC. So, I will remind you, these close games, like, guys, if you beat Ole Miss last year and you have a 12-team playoff, you're in. You can lose to Bama. You can lose to Florida State. What you can't have happen is, in a game like Ole Miss, that you have a critical drop by a running back like Caleb Jackson and the flat when you're trying to get a first down. Those type of things cannot happen. All right. Another thing. Greedy Vance went into the portal today from Florida State. Edna Carr. There's going to be a debate. I know that there are going to be other DBs that leave, but there's going to be a debate with him, if there hasn't already been a debate with him. I think, and maybe you guys have seen it on social media, for whatever reason, Alabama thinks that they're getting him. Guys, I will tell you, if a kid from this state can play at Bama, he can play here. Even if he never does play, you don't want a rival getting a kid from your own state, a team that you're going to be competing for a playoff spot with. Older player experience. I don't think that he makes a massive change. I don't even think that he plays here, really, truthfully. But you just, I don't know. Maybe they go after corner, maybe they don't. We'll see. Some other things that Brian Kelly said. I don't know if he meant Whit Weeks or West Weeks. But the biggest thing that I took away from here, maybe he didn't mean West Weeks. I think he did mean West. He said that West Weeks has not had a good spring camp. He's had a great spring camp. When you say something like that, when a head coach like Brian Kelly, who doesn't often get to a place where he uses the G word. Guys, he does not use that G word a lot. Now, he campaigned for Jaden Daniels, and he used the word a lot, but Jaden Daniels was great. Jaden Daniels was elite. And I don't want to come out of this in a spring, but when a head coach comes out and says a guy has been great, then what? So, I thought that was very appealing to me. Also, he talked about the defensive staff and all the, the connection that they have and all of them have worked together at some point or another. Thought that was key. But I got to bring up one last thing before I get to your comments. Okay. This is the third straight time that we've had Brian Kelly in a press conference that he's talked about the backup quarterback situation. Unprompted. Not all unprompted. The one Saturday wasn't unprompted. But the two before that were unprompted. Now, Brian Kelly said today that Ricky Collins and A.J. Swann are battling, and you're going to see a lot of them. He's sending a message. Brian Kelly is sending a message to Ricky Collins. I think we're in for a little intense battle on Saturday, to be honest with you. And Ricky needs to perform. If I'm Ricky Collins, I put everything in. I would run. I would throw it all over the place. I would do what I needed to do. Don't leave anything to chance. I don't know what that means yet from BK. I'll be real with you. I don't know why he keeps talking about it. And I understand that, obviously if Garrett goes down, it's a big deal who the quarterback's going to be. I will be real with you. I don't think any of the three scholarship quarterbacks are ready. I still believe that A.J. Swann would go in because of experience, but A.J. Swann has not had a great spring game or spring. He's dropped way, way too many snaps. He's made some good decisions. I'll give him this. He's made some good decisions. Doesn't have a bad arm, but he's just been clunky. And is the clunkiness because he is playing with a new team? He is playing a new system. He's trying to learn the plays, learn running back and handoffs. That can definitely be something. But just right now, he's been a little bit clunky. So it's going to be a good battle.